The New York Knicks are a historic franchise that haven't truly been contenders for over 20 years. A team that hasn't won a championship in half a century. But is now the time for the return of New York basketball? Since the end of Patrick Ewing's reign in the Garden, the team has struggled to find any success beyond a brief 3-year playoff run with Carmelo Anthony. Yet with all that said, the Knicks have made the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years and seem to only be getting better. Before we dive into this team, let's take a look at how we got to this point.
Breaking news, we can roll it because, wow, Woj has since tweeted Dallas finalizing a trade to acquire Kristaps Porzingis. The New York Times' Mark Stein, look at these details. He's got Hardaway and Courtney Lee are going to go with Porzingis to Dallas. Dallas is sending, according to Mark Stein, DeAndre Jordan, Wes Matthews, and Dennis Smith Jr.
With the third pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select RJ Barrett from Toronto and Duke University.
This is for Knicks fans. It's a glass half empty, but hold on, I think this is more like it. I'll just leave one little drop. See, there's a little drop on the bottom. It's a glass almost entirely empty. That's for you. And then also, I know the big free agent signing, I wanted to be the first one to get you a Julius Randle jersey. I hope you rock it. You rock it with pride. Molly, I thought they were supposed to get KD and Kyrie, the Knicks.
However, we are following breaking news right now. After a long search, although we expected it, Tom Thibodeau officially becomes the head coach of the New York Knicks. Of course, he has a close relationship with the team president, Leon Rose here. The 62-year-old, according to reports, has agreed to a 5-year deal to join the Knicks and take over. Thibodeau's coached 8 seasons in the NBA with the Bulls and Timberwolves, and as you remember, was the 2010-2011 NBA Coach of the Year when he leaves with Chicago.
Randle signed an extension, 4-year, $117 million. Interesting, Mr. Rose. If he waited another year, he could have signed for more money, but wanted the security of signing now. What do you think about that decision?
Heat up, weed up, bring it back, come rewind. This is a boss move by Julius Randle. And I want to make sure I say this as complimentary as possible. Last year was a magical one for him and the New York Knicks that they might not embody again. There might not be another season where he's top 4 or 5 MVP candidate, winning most improved player, the Knicks hosting a playoff series. Like, those things might not be happening in the near future, but at the same time, getting 117 now versus getting 200 in the offseason, that's a deal for the Knicks.
You see this hat right here? You see this hat right here? Let me tell y'all something, you damn Knicks. Y'all getting on my damn nerves. Obi Toppin goes in an open court and does a between-the-leg dunk. The New York Knicks were down 7 at the time. That pulled it to within 5. But y'all ended up down by damn near 30. You a game under 500. Wake the hell up. You're a below-average team, damn it. I'm sitting there making bets talking about how the New York Knicks, we here. New York, stand up. Y'all sit the hell down. Get your damn act together. Julius Randle, play some damn team basketball. Tom Thibodeau, stop giving him the damn ball 19 feet, 20 feet away from the basket so we can see his ball handling skills, only to watch him use his left hand because we know he and RJ Barrett are allergic to using their right hand. What the hell is going on, New York Knicks?
Some disappointment in the building when the Knicks traded out of number 11. They made a deal with Oklahoma City, got 3 future first-round picks, and then they were part of a 3-team deal that sent Jalen Brunson from Charlotte through New York to Detroit, and also offloaded Kemba Walker and his $9.5 million contract. And listen, the goal for this Knicks team right now, gather up assets using those first-round picks that they can use in future trades and get salary cap space to make a run in free agency at Dallas Mavericks guard Jalen Brunson.
So we have great news that the New York Knicks are re-signing their own free agent center Mitchell Robinson to a 4-year, $60 million deal, according to Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN.
It's an awful idea. And Jalen Brunson's a fine player. But Wild's pal Bill Simmons put it perfectly when he called it the saddest sweepstakes ever. The Jalen Brunson sweepstakes. So, anytime you can trade away guys you just signed and draft picks to make sure you can give that guy $25 million a year, you just got to do it. But Brew, Leon Rose got hired in March of 2020. The Knicks since then have done the following. Hired Tom Thibodeau. That's going swimmingly at your local AARP club, not necessarily swimmingly in local professional basketball arenas. He then signed Nerlens Noel, who he just had to salary dump, Kemba Walker, who he just had to salary dump, Alec Burks, who he just had to salary dump, Taj Gibson, who's still there, Julius Randle, who's borderline untradeable, Evan Fournier, and maybe his best signing, Derrick Rose, who plays the same position as Jalen Brunson.
You've taken a lot of flack from Knicks fans.
Yes, because I've taken a lot of wins from Knicks. That's why. So this is my thing. Knicks, I want to compliment the Knicks front office, right? I understand that when you're talking about Donovan Mitchell and you're talking about they could have got him in this. Well, they didn't want to give up everything. They decided to stick with the plan that they've had for the last couple of years, and it's working. Yes, they got Brunson, and he is looking like a steal. 20-point-a-game scorer. He can man your offense. He can help control your defense. He's a great late-game free throw shooter. So he's helping you guys do all the things, and he's taking the ball out of Julius Randle's hand a little bit. So when I look at what the Knicks are doing, I'm giving you guys a compliment. You guys are following the template that you said you were going to follow. You're not going to worry about crazy free agents. You're going to build block by block.
So what does it mean to you to be named an All-Star yet again?
It means a lot. You know, you put a lot of work and effort into coming prepared every season. Thankfully, you know, my organization, my teammates, coaches, everybody trusts me to go out and be the best version of me every night. And I just try to make you guys proud, so I appreciate it.
Knicks' last series win. 2013, that squad featured Carmelo Anthony, J.R. Smith, Ray Felton, Jason Kidd, Iman Shumpert. But now, led by Jalen Brunson, the Knicks win their first playoff series since 2013. Mild upset of the fourth-seeded team, beating Cleveland handily, 4-1.
The Heat knocked out the Knicks here on ESPN. Everyone wants to hear Stephen A's reaction. The rest of the time is yours.
I want to thank Jalen Brunson for the great season that he gave the city of New York and the Knicks franchise. 14-22 shooting, 41 points. Absolutely sensational performance from him. RJ Barrett is going to be a long off season. You are absolutely pathetic. 1 of 10 from the field. In 32 minutes, all you could score was one basket. You got to really look yourself in the mirror and work on your game, young man. Julius Randle, I am done with this man. I'm calling for the New York Knicks to trade him. You're not going to win with him. His body language, the second his shot is not falling, he's defeated, and it has contagious effect. It's like a virus.
Breaking news, Josh Hart gets his bag. The Knicks signed their guy Josh Hart to a 4-year, $81 million contract extension. The wait is over, and as Josh Hart touched down in Spain, he is now the recipient of just about $20 million per year.
Knicks Nation, we landed him. Dante DiVincenzo is officially a New York Knick, 4 years, $50 million. He reunites with Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart. The Villanova boys are assembling in New York City.
Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of NBA Now. It's your boy Dom, and we're going to get right into things here today. Now, obviously, we are going to be talking about the New York Knicks today. And the Knicks have been through a lot. Like I kind of said in the intro, this team has not won in a long, long time. But we kind of saw that start to change this last season. We saw them go to the playoffs. We saw them beat the Cavs in the first round, which personally I didn't think they would be able to do. And I'll kind of get more into some of my thoughts about that series alone in a minute. And they did eventually lose to the Miami Heat, but it was their first playoff win in like 9 or 10 years. And it was a huge success for this team that, just the year prior didn't even make the playoffs. Obviously, we kind of, in that intro, you guys were able to see they brought in Dante DiVincenzo, re-signed Josh Hart, and some other stuff that has kind of brought them to where they are now. They also did trade Obi Toppin, which I talked about a little bit more in my Pacers video. So if you guys want to see more of my thoughts on that trade, it'll be over in the Pacers video, but kind of a summarized version of that is I don't think it was a great trade for him. I understand it a little bit, like getting rid of him, kind of freeing up the minutes or whatever. But beyond that, I don't really understand trading him for such little value, especially when it's a guy that was taken number 8 overall and was projected to go top 5 in his own draft. But that's kind of the brief version of what I think of that trade. Beyond that, this roster looks good going into this next season, right? Obviously, you have RJ Barrett, Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, and then, the rest of the gang is kind of Evan Fournier, Josh Hart, obviously the addition of Dante DiVincenzo. You've got Miles McBride in there, Emmanuel Quickley, Mitchell Robinson, and then kind of your backup center being Isaiah Hartenstein, along with, I don't know if I mentioned Quentin Grimes, but along with Quentin Grimes. And that's kind of your main bunch of guys going into this next season. Now, when we look at what happened last season, obviously Julius Randle made his second All-Star team with the New York Knicks, averaging 25 points per game. And I know Knicks fans have, their hate to throw at Julius Randle. And obviously, personally, I don't think he's a number 1 star player, championship guy, whatever. I don't think you can build around him as your best option. And I think that's been apparent his entire career. You can take that all the way back to when he was playing with the Lakers. Like, he just never has been a true number 1 option guy. Now he's gotten them to the playoffs as a number 1 option, and he's played well for the Knicks. But how much longer in New York he has left is up in the air. It's definitely up in the air, especially with all the trade rumors around other players. But we'll get into that here in a minute. And then the guy that I was so wrong about. I was totally wrong about Jalen Brunson. I thought when New York got Jalen Brunson, it was not the right move. I thought they overpaid for him. I thought it didn't make sense to use all your money on Jalen Brunson because what's he going to bring to your team? He's not even, a top 15 point guard. I was just very much in the mindset of, okay, he's a mid-tier point guard. And now he's completely changed my mind, especially when you look at that Cleveland series. I mean, I can't remember if it was game 2 or game 3, but I was listening to it because I was at work and I was in the back room and I was listening to the game, kind of like the game cast or whatever. And everything I heard, like every time down the floor, it was, and Jalen Brunson hits this shot, and Jalen Brunson hits this shot, and the Knicks are up now. And it was like, oh my God, this guy is taking over not only this game, but this series and single-handedly carrying this team. So I was completely wrong about Jalen Brunson. At this point, I think he should have been an All-Star last year. I think he probably will be an All-Star this next season. And personally, I think he's the best player in the Knicks, right? So Jalen Brunson completely changed my mind. I was completely wrong about him. And he's probably the Knicks' best player. Averaged 24 points last year. Shot 41% from 3, almost 50% from the field. And when you look at his assist numbers, he was also given, 6 assists per game. So he was running the offense and, was just taking over. I think he just had that takeover ability that I just didn't quite realize how well that would translate to being on the Knicks. Now, I don't think he can be a number 1 on a championship team, but could he be a 2? Could he be a 3? That's very, very possible. I think he has developed exponentially since entering the league. Even so much that last year he probably should have been in most improved player conversations. When you look last year, he went from 16 points to 24 points from Dallas to New York. He also upped his 3-point percentage by, 4%, going from a 37% shooter to a 41% shooter from 3. And that's also on an increase in volume as well. And then, his assists went up, his steals went up, his turnovers did go up because he had the ball more, but for the most part, he went up across the board. Free throw percentage stayed about the same at 82%, 84% the year before. So, he had a phenomenal season, clearly improved his play, and was one of the best players on this team, if not the best player on this team. And Lauri Markkanen, the guy that ran away with it, went from 14 to 25. So, not a crazy jump, especially when you consider that he's averaged 18 before. It's a comparable jump. It's a crazy jump, but it's a comparable jump to Jalen Brunson, who pretty much every year of his career has not won most improved player, but has improved. The only decline in points was from his first year to his second year. We went from 9 to 8, but he goes 9, 8, 12, 16, 24, just a constant improvement as a player over time, which is crazy to see. I think he's their best player going into next season, and I think a lot of eyes are going to be on him for a potential All-Star appearance. When you look at a guy like RJ Barrett, he maybe had a little bit of a disappointing last season. Obviously, RJ has had his ups and downs in New York, and I think the biggest thing that you have to look at is his three-point percentage has been on a steady decline since his sophomore season. Now, his rookie season in the NBA, he only shot 32% from three. People were wondering, can he kind of increase his three-point shooting? Gets it up to 40% his sophomore season. Averages 17 points a game, averages 20 the next year with a little dip in three-point, but he upped his attempts per game, so everybody kind of figured that maybe his three-point percentage would start to climb back up. And now last year was his worst three-point shooting year at 31%, clearly below league averaged just under 20 points per game. And it's kind of in question of, really, can he be a star for this team? Can he truly make it like we thought he would, being a number 3 overall pick to, an all-star level of player? And honestly, at this point, it's really hard to say. I mean, he's really kind of fallen into that Andrew Wiggins category, where if he got an all-star nod, well, he's playing with a bunch of other players on a very successful team, maybe. But beyond that, I don't know if he can truly be a all-star level player, and that's not something you would have said a few years ago. So he's a guy that I think is definitely potentially in trade rumors. Maybe a new, change of scenery does a lot for him. And we do have to consider the fact that this guy is 22 years old. He now is the same age that Jalen Brunson was entering the NBA, because Jalen Brunson's rookie season, he was 22. Last year, he was 26. RJ Barrett, his 4th season in the league, is just 22 years old. So that's something to keep in mind. I mean, we've seen so much progression from Jalen Brunson throughout his career. Why can that much progression not be ahead for RJ Barrett? Yet, New York doesn't exactly operate on a typical time clock, because we know how much New York Knicks fans, and just New York fans in general, whether it's the Giants, the Jets, the Knicks, the Nets, their baseball teams, like their hockey teams, it doesn't matter. New York sports clocks don't really run on typical sports time, just because the fans want to see it winning, and it's such a popular fan base. And New York is considered the mecca of basketball for a reason, right? So we'll see what happens with RJ Barrett going into the future. Then you kind of get into, I guess, the others. When you're looking at this team, Josh Hart, I think, is a major addition for him. He's played well with Team USA, played well for him last year. Very much a Tom Thibodeau guy. It makes sense why they re-signed him. I think he'll continue to be good for this team, especially if he can shoot. Like, he doesn't shoot on a crazy volume, but especially if he can shoot like he did last year, where when he got to New York, he shot 50% from 3. Huge for them. We know he's going to be a hustle guy, get the rebounds, etc. So I think he'll be big for them continuing to go into the future. Quentin Grimes is another guy that puts some pressure on RJ Barrett. We've seen a lot of improvement throughout his career. He was up to 11 points last year. I know a lot of people were kind of calling for RJ's starting spot with Quentin Grimes there, who, kind of showed a lot of improvement going from his freshman, or I don't know why I keep wanting to say freshman, going from his rookie season to his sophomore season. Again, almost a 40-point three-point shooter as well, doubled in points, increased his assists, was still, a decent defender. And so Quentin Grimes maybe makes it easier to move on from a guy like RJ Barrett, which is something to consider. Emmanuel Quickley as well has continued to be a decent player for them ever since they drafted him. Only 23 years old, played 81 games for him last year, averaged almost 15 on 47% from 3. That's really the big thing with him. He can space the floor. He's a guard. He helps you out there, whether it's off the bench or starting, which he did do occasionally as well. And then Mitchell Robinson is kind of your big man there, your main centerpiece when you're looking at a center. He has been very good throughout his career, not like all-star level, but averaged 8 points last year and almost 10 rebounds. He also shot 67% from the field. And then obviously where everybody looks at for Mitchell Robinson is his defense, 1.8 blocks and 0.9 steals per game last year. So continued to be a good defender, maybe not as good as he's peaked before in the past. In order to get that extension that he did, I know his highest blocks per game was his rookie season at 2.4, and he's kind of steadily gone down since then. His minutes has also increased, which is something to consider, but he's definitely a premier shot blocker in the league still, and so that's good for them. Although, again, that contract potentially comes into play for trade because he's only 24 years old, and health can sometimes be a concern with him only playing 59 games last year. Then you move on to the backup center, Isaiah Hartenstein. He ended up having to start a few games from last year, was a highly coveted center coming out of Los Angeles, where a lot of people were looking to bring him in as a backup center. Didn't have as good of a year last year as he did the year prior, but is still a serviceable, decent backup center. Evan Fournier's continued to be on a huge contract for this team. did not produce a lot last year, did not play a lot last year, only played 27 games, only started 7, and only scored 6 points per game as a guy that's not a defensive player. I mean, he's brought on to be a offensive scorer. Peaked back in 2019-2020 at 18 points per game. Shortly after, ends up in Boston, ends up in New York, and he does have we'll get into the cap here in a second, but his cap does fall off here shortly, so it's not too much to worry about there. And I mean, that's kind of the team you're looking at. Maybe we'll see some development out of a guy like Miles McBride or Jericho Sims heading into next season, but it's nothing to really bank on, as a guy like Miles McBride has not shown a ton throughout the opportunities he's had so far in his career. But then when you get to the cap, this team has a lot of big contracts, like we were just talking about. Julius Randle's $28 million, Jalen Brunson's $26 million, RJ Barrett's $23 million, Evan Fournier $18, Mitchell Robinson $15, Josh Hart $13, goes up to $20 after his extension kicks in. DiVincenzo's making about $11 a year. Hartenstein's $9 million will fall off after this season, and then quickly enters restricted free agency going into the summer. And Quentin Grimes has one more year on his rookie deal after this year. So a lot of interesting stuff when you kind of look at that. And when you combine these salaries, you put 18 and 15 together, that's star level salary. That's Mitchell Robinson and Fournier. You put 23 and 15 together, that's star level salary. You could throw all three of them together, that's RJ Barrett, Evan Fournier, and Mitchell Robinson. Now we're talking in the range of $60 to $70 million that you can move on from, which probably gets you a star player and get you some other filler pieces to kind of fill out the rest of this team, which would already have decent depth with Josh Hart, Donte DiVincenzo, Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes. Maybe one of those younger guys gets thrown into the trade, and all of a sudden you potentially do have yourself a star player. So I think New York will continue to be in the market for a star, and really a main star to kind of pit next to Jalen Brunson and potentially Julius Randle. We'll see if he ends up getting moved on from it as well. But I do think that extension makes it a little bit more difficult to move on from Julius Randle. And then again, when you look at Evan Fournier's contract, he does have a team option that will expire not this next season, but the following season in 2024, 2025. So they can exercise that and keep him or get rid of him. So that would really kind of help this cap room a lot when you're kind of considering the fact that, if you're trading him, it's not a long contract that a team has to take. But also, if you don't end up being able to trade him, at least his money falls off here fairly soon. Then you look at, like I said, Emmanuel Quickley is going to enter restricted free agency. How much of a bag is he going to garner? He's averaged 15, shooting almost 40% from 3. At this point in his career, he'll only be 25 once he hits free agency. Will somebody throw him, a cap sheet where it's kind of like it's not worth matching it for New York, and does that kind of hurt a trade? Now, I know they've been tied to guys like Donovan Mitchell, and we'll see if that comes to fruition. I know a lot of people are wondering if this really is Donovan's last year in Cleveland. And it would be kind of funny to see Cleveland have traded all that for Donovan Mitchell just for him to end up in New York regardless. And even funnier when you consider the fact that New York just sent Donovan Mitchell home and he might end up on that team here within a year or so. So definitely watch this team come trade deadline for trades. I think this team will probably be back in the playoffs, maybe a little less than they were last year. They were the 5 seed. I'd expect them about a 6 or a 7 seed. It would take probably a jump from RJ Barrett to improve upon that. Again, I always consider that the East is a young conference and continuing to improve, so it's very easy to slide a position or two, especially if you are, for the most part, a relatively same team from last year, with really the only addition being Donte DiVincenzo, who is more of a role player than anything. And although I think will provide stuff for this team, I don't think sets this team over the top or really improves upon them enough to, increase in seeding, be a top 4 seed, have home court advantage come playoff time. Because, when you look at what he did last year, he averaged about 9 points per game for the Golden State Warriors, plays good defense, good playmaker, and so I think he'll help. He'll do some of that dirty work, continue to feed into that Thibodeau style of basketball, but I don't think he sets this team over the top. I don't know. That's my thoughts on the New York Knicks entering the 2023-2024 season. Let me know what you guys think down below. Do you guys think Jalen Brunson will be an All-Star? Or do you guys somehow think that Jalen Brunson isn't the best player on this team? Let me know again down below, and I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace out, guys.
How do y'all handle the media and all that fan noise and that negativity that's coming towards y'all?
First thing first, if you want like a lesson, don't do thumbs down. That didn't work out well for me. Honestly, I love it, bro. It's made me the player I am today. It all depends on how you look at it, bro. It can be tough for some people, and it's been tough for me. It's been tough for my family. The garden it's a different animal. It done taught me so much more about myself. And as a player, age you though, bro, it's like almost being like you the president, and they go in there and you see them and they look great, and 4 years later they got the image and they look old as hell.
Yeah,
that's how I feel right now.